The world you know is gone. It vanished the moment the sun set, on what we now call the last day of normalcy. Since that day, every city on Earth, from Tokyo to Toronto, has been under a strict, government-enforced curfew. When the sirens blare at dusk, it's not just a signal to go home. The streets you walked freely just hours ago now belong to someone else. Something else. Humanity is no longer at the top of the food chain. We've been forced to adapt to a terrifying new reality. One where we are no longer the hunters, but the hunted. This isn't a story from a book or a movie. This is the world you would live in if vampires actually existed. And it would be a world built on fear, strategy, and the simple, brutal truth that the night is no longer ours. Section 1. The Great Unveiling. The night the world changed. So how would this new reality begin? It wouldn't be a slow burn. There'd be no whispers on fringe internet forums or grainy, inconclusive videos. For a competing apex predator to reveal itself, it would have to be a single, undeniable, and catastrophic event. Imagine a coordinated global incident or red night, or in major cities across every continent. The veil is torn away in a terrifying show of power. Not a random attack, but a statement. Perhaps the public assassination of a world leader, not by a bullet, but by a phantom-like figure in front of 1,000 cameras. Or maybe the simultaneous silent draining of secure military barracks, leaving behind nothing but cold bodies and the chilling absence of a single drop of blood. The initial response would be pure chaos. Global markets would evaporate overnight. Communication systems would be overwhelmed. Governments, caught completely off guard, would resort to their most primitive function, control. Martial law wouldn't be a temporary measure, but the new, permanent state of being. The first few weeks would be a blur of disbelief, panic, and a desperate search for answers. Every disease known to man would be blamed, from rabies to some terrifying new virus. Scientists would scramble, offering theories ranging from a new species to a weaponized biological agent. But the truth, when it finally settled, would be far more paradigm-shattering. The creatures seen on flickering screens impossibly fast, unnaturally strong, and indifferent to conventional weapons aren't just sick humans. They are something older. The legends are real, though our modern image of them is largely shaped by fiction from the last few centuries. In fact, many popular ideas like a grand secret vampire society come directly from modern storytelling like the role-playing game Vampire, the Masquerade. In that fiction, this secret society is called the Masquerade, and in our scenario, this great unveiling wouldn't be an accident. It would be a deliberate declaration that the age of secrecy was over. Psychologically, humanity would be shattered. We have spent our entire existence at the top of the evolutionary ladder, our only real threat being ourselves. Suddenly we're relegated to the status of prey. This isn't just a physical threat, it's an existential one, to be thrust back into a constant state of vigilance. A world where every shadow could hide a hunter would trigger a global psychological crisis. We would learn the hard way what every other prey animal on the planet already knows. Survival is a full-time job. The world didn't just get more dangerous, the fundamental rules of existence were rewritten, and humanity, for the first time in its modern history, was losing. Section 2. The New World Order adapting to the apex predators in the months and years after the Great Unveiling. Humanity would do what it does best, adapt or die. Survival would mean a complete restructuring of society, from the highest levels of government to the most mundane parts of daily life. The world would become a fortress, and our lives would be dictated by the setting of the sun. Government and law, the curfew state, the first and most lasting change, would be the global sundown curfew. This would be non-negotiable, enforced by every government with brutal efficiency. As dusk approaches, sirens wail across every city and town. Armored police vehicles and military patrols replace civilian cars. Anyone caught on the streets after curfew wouldn't just be fined. They'd be considered either a fool or a collaborator, and likely treated as disposable. The entire nighttime economy, bars, restaurants, theaters, 24-hour retail would simply cease to exist. Cities, once vibrant hubs of nightlife, would become silent, eerie ghost towns after dark. The only people authorized to move at night would be members of newly formed Vampire Emergency Response Units, or VER, Us heavily armed squads equipped with the few things proven to be effective in stories: high intensity, UV light projectors, and incendiary weapons. Politically, old squabbles over borders and resources would seem laughably quaint. Human unity would be forged not in the fires of idealism, but in the cold, shared terror of the night. The United Nations might be reformed into a species-wide defense council. Secret agencies that once monitored supernatural threats would become the most powerful arms of government. Their main job is answering the critical questions: how many are there? The blood economy, the planet's most valuable commodity since blood is the vampire's food source. Our place on the food chain is now violently contested. This basic need would spawn the single largest and most controversial industry on the planet: the blood economy. To stop indiscriminate hunting that would reduce humanity to livestock, a system would have to be established. Blood banks would become more critical than oil refineries. At the top, billions would be poured into creating a viable synthetic blood substitute, a project seen as the only long-term path to peace. This would become the new space race, a desperate quest for the Holy Grail that could elevate humanity from prey back to partners. Below that, a regulated donation system would emerge. Giving blood would become a civic duty, incentivized with tax breaks and social benefits. Of course, this would lead to the darkest corner of the new economy: the black market. An illicit trade in human blood would flourish, run by criminals foolish enough to operate in the twilight hours. This market would be horrific, involving blood poaching of marginalized populations and rumors of clandestine blood farms, a terrifying echo of the very livestock system we pride ourselves on having mastered. A strange subculture of willing vessels would also emerge, people who emerge for thrill-seeking, a desire for a symbiotic relationship, or a belief in vampiric superiority, would willingly offer themselves to be fed upon. This would raise all sorts of complex legal and ethical questions, especially since the vampire's bite is often described in fiction as euphoric and addictive. It's creating a bond far stronger than any drug. Daily life for the average human, a life half-lived for the average person. Life would become a sequence of carefully managed risks. Your home would transform from a place of comfort into a personal fortress. Windows would be fitted with reinforced steel shutters or UV light emitters. Every house would have a reinforced windowless safe room. Childhood would be altered forever. Vampire drills would be as common in schools as fire drills are today. A generation would grow up with a deep instinctual fear of the dark. Social life would be crammed into the daylight hours. The concept of a night out would simply vanish. Travel would become a logistical nightmare, requiring stays in fortified waypoint hotels along major highways. The world itself would look different. The glowing lights of Times Square and the Eiffel Tower lit up at night would go dark forever, monuments to a bygone era of safety. Humanity would survive, but it would be a smaller, more fearful existence. A life lived in the glare of the sun, always aware of the long, dark night to come. Section 3. Inside Vampire Society, a glimpse into the shadows. To understand this new world, you have to understand its new masters. Modern fiction, particularly role-playing games, has imagined a complex and ruthless social structure for them, refined over centuries of hiding in plain sight. Let's explore that vision. It's a world of politics, power, and protocol, where a single misstep can lead to a final, permanent death. The feudal knight, princes, clans, and domains. In this imagined society, vampires are fundamentally feudal. It's not built on democracy, but on lineage and territory. The core unit is the clan, a group of vampires bound by a shared bloodline stretching back to a powerful ancient founder. These clans aren't just families. They're political factions, each with its own culture, ideology, and unique strengths. At the top of this hierarchy are the princes. A prince is a vampire of immense age and power who claims a city as their personal domain. The Prince of New York, the Prince of Paris aren't mayors, they are absolute monarchs of the night. Their word is law, but their authority is constantly challenged by ambitious younger vampires and rival clans. Beneath the prince, a council of elders, sometimes called a primogen council, is made up of the most powerful representative from each major clan in the city. They act as advisors, but are also kingmakers and potential usurpers, their loyalty always in question. Daily life for the average human, a life half-lived for the average person. Life would become a sequence of carefully managed risks. Your home would transform from a place of comfort into a personal fortress. Windows would be fitted with reinforced steel shutters or UV light emitters. Every house would have a reinforced windowless safe room. Childhood would be altered forever. Vampire drills would be as common in schools as fire drills are today. A generation would grow up with a deep instinctual fear of the dark. Social life would be crammed into the daylight hours. The concept of a night out would simply vanish. Travel would become a logistical nightmare, requiring stays in fortified waypoint hotels along major highways. The world itself would look different. The glowing lights of Times Square and the Eiffel Tower lit up at night would go dark forever. Monuments to a bygone era of safety. Humanity would survive, but it would be a smaller, more fearful existence. A life lived in the glare of the sun, always aware of the long, dark night to come. Section 3. Inside Vampire Society, a glimpse into the shadows to understand this new world. You have to understand its new masters. Modern fiction, particularly role-playing games, has imagined a complex and ruthless social structure for them, refined over centuries of hiding in plain sight. Let's explore that vision. It's a world of politics, power, and protocol, where a single misstep can lead to a final, permanent death. The feudal knight, princes, clans, and domains. In this imagined society, vampires are fundamentally feudal. It's not built on democracy, but on lineage and territory. The core unit is the clan, a group of vampires bound by a shared bloodline stretching back to a powerful ancient founder. These clans aren't just families. They're political factions, each with its own culture, ideology, and unique strengths. At the top of this hierarchy are the princes. A prince is a vampire of immense age and power who claims a city as their personal domain. The Prince of New York, the Prince of Paris aren't mayors, they are absolute monarchs of the night. Their word is law, but their authority is constantly challenged by ambitious younger vampires and rival clans. Beneath the prince, a council of elders, sometimes called a primogen council, is made up of the most powerful representative from each major clan in the city. They act as advisors, but are also kingmakers and potential usurpers, their loyalty always in question. We've just explored one terrifyingly detailed vision of vampire society, a world of ancient politics and immortal power struggles. But what if other myths were real? What kind of world would we live in if werewolves, fae, or dragons actually existed? Let us know in the comments what if you want us to explore next. And if you enjoyed this glimpse into the darkness, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You don't want to be left in the dark when we uncover our next secret world. Section 4. The uneasy coexistence. Human-vampire interaction with the world irrevocably changed. The question of coexistence moves from fiction to the brutal forefront of global policy. The relationship wouldn't be a simple story of good versus evil, but a complex dance of survival between a deposed king and his new nocturnal overlord. The open secret, a world of two truths. Humanity would quickly learn that fighting a conventional war against a species that can turn your own fallen soldiers against you is a losing game. Likewise, the more pragmatic vampires would know that openly slaughtering humanity is like burning down your only food source. The result? A tense and deeply unstable, open secret policy. Publicly, governments would maintain a narrative of containment. The curfews, the military patrols, all framed as a successful strategy to protect citizens from a manageable threat. Beneath this facade, a secret reality would exist. Covert diplomatic channels would open between human leaders and the ruling vampire princes. These would not be negotiations between equals. They would be tense meetings where humans bargain with beings who see them as talking livestock. The deals struck here would shape the world. A prince might agree to keep feral vampires in check in exchange for a guaranteed supply of blood from city hospitals. A city might see a miraculous drop in crime, unaware it's because the local prince declared a no-compete zone for feeding, a peace bought with a price the public could never imagine. Masters of puppets, infiltration, and control. Even with their existence known, the most powerful vampires would know that true control comes from controlling the people who build the throne. Their longevity and supernatural persuasion would make them the ultimate infiltrators. They'd become silent partners in major corporations, hidden patrons of political parties, and unseen owners of media empires. Why risk open conflict when you can control the flow of information? A vampire could own the news network that downplays reports of attacks in their territory, calming the public while protecting their feeding grounds. This covert control is the ultimate power, the ability to make your prey believe they are still free. The fringe dwellers, human response to the new power. Humanity wouldn't react as one. The revelation of vampires would create new subcultures and extremist movements. On one side, you'd have the hunters. The radicalized groups would reject any form of coexistence, viewing all vampires as monsters to be destroyed. They'd operate outside the law in their own guerrilla war, a constant thorn in the side of both governments and vampires. On the other, a bizarre spectrum of vampire enthusiasts would emerge. Also would be blood worshippers, cults that see vampires as divine beings. Others would be wannabes, obsessed with immortality and desperately seeking to be turned. Between these extremes would be the collaborators, humans who knowingly work for vampires, trading loyalty for power, wealth, or protection. They would be the daylight faces for vampiric enterprises and the lawyers who navigate human bureaucracy for their immortal masters. Reviled by many, they would become a necessary and powerful class in this new world order. By fostering this division, vampires would ensure humanity could never truly unite against them. Section 5. The future of two species in a world shared by humans and vampires. The future is a razor's edge, balanced precariously between a tense symbiosis and mutual extinction. The long-term forecast would be defined by an ongoing arms race of biology, technology, and ideology.
It's ready.
Evolution and adaptation.
Are you sure about this?
The technological hunt humanity's greatest strength has always been our ingenuity. The global arms race of the 20th century would look like a playground squabble compared to the anti-vampire tech boom. Urban architecture would evolve into a discipline of hostile design. Buildings would be retrofitted with automated UVC light projectors and silver-laced barriers. Public spaces would be designed with minimal shadows. Fence would be far more terrifying. Military research would move beyond firearms. The new weapons would be based on vampiric weaknesses from folklore. Imagine squads with cannons firing silver nitrate solutions, or drones projecting focused beams of UV light. The most profound and controversial field would be biological. Vampirism might be treated as a retrovirus or parasitic infection. This could lead to a vaccine to prevent humans from being turned. Even more sinister would be the development of engineered diseases that specifically target vampiric biology, a genocide bomb that could wipe them off the face of the earth. A question of rights, person, patient, or monster. As the initial shock wears off, a deep philosophical divide would split humanity. The central question, what is a vampire? The exterminationist view would be simple. They are monsters, a plague to be eradicated. The medical viewpoint would see vampirism as a disease to be cured. This, while seeming benevolent, would be seen by many vampires as an attempt to erase their very identity. Finally, the sentient rights movement would argue that vampires are a separate, sentient species with a right to exist. They would push for a true, symbiotic relationship based on laws and mutual respect. This debate would rage in courts, parliaments, and on blood-soaked streets for generations. The finiosis or extinction, the final game. Ultimately, this intertwined destiny leads to one of three possible futures. The first is extinction. Humanity, driven by fear, might develop a weapon that wipes out the vampires. Or, the more aggressive vampire factions could win their holy war, effectively enslaving humanity and turning Earth into a global blood farm. The simmer, the second is find. The second one regada dada 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 dada. The second was being. with one offer. One unlight, one on well. On wall, one on one, one on wall, one on one. By when on what on one on wall, one on one on wall, I'm sent one so I'm down so one sent some salam sa my wada sa wada da 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 na da 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 da. Through technology, negotiation, and cultural adaptation, the two species might find a tense balance. Humanity would provide a regulated supply of blood, perhaps entirely synthetic in exchange for peace and the benefits of vampiric knowledge. The third and most chilling possibility is domestication. In this scenario, humanity doesn't go extinct, but its spirit does. Through centuries of subtle manipulation, vampires turn humanity into a placid, manageable herd. We'd be kept safe, healthy, and content in brightly lit cities, trading our freedom for the illusion of safety. We would exist only because they allow it. Conclusion: the emergence of vampires would do more than just introduce a new predator. It would shatter our perception of our place in the universe. We, who have defined ourselves as the pinnacle of creation, would be forced into a terrifying new role, the managed prey. Our society would be rebuilt around a single, primal fear, the fear of the dark. We would trade freedom for safety and progress for security. And yet, it might also force a new kind of unity upon us. Faced with an external threat so absolute, our own internal squabbles might seem petty. We might discover a strength we never knew we had, the desperate resilience of a species that refuses to go extinct. The world would be smaller, darker, and infinitely more dangerous. But the human spirit, even when cornered, is a stubborn thing. So the ultimate question is, in this new world of night, would we cower in the light, waiting for the end? Or would we learn to fight in the shadows? What would you do to survive?